Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time.
You've heard it a million times, right? The conversation about Palestine almost always starts with the word complex. It's framed as this ancient, tangled conflict that's just impossible to understand. But what if that framing isn't an accident? The authors we're looking at today argue that calling it complex is actually a way to avoid a much simpler, though maybe more challenging, story.
So what if the problem isn't just the situation on the ground, but the very words we use to describe it? Let's start by digging into what the authors call the peace orthodoxy.
Okay, so look at these terms. Peace process, two-state solution, negotiations. I mean, we've all heard these for decades, right? They're the standard language of diplomacy. But the authors argue this language is totally misleading. It paints a picture of two equal sides that just can't seem to get along. But what if it's not two equal sides? What if it's actually a state and a people living under its control? This language, they say, completely papers over that massive imbalance of power. To cut through that fog of complexity, authors Noam Chomsky and Ilan Pappé say we need a total reframe. We need to stop seeing this as a conflict between two parties and start seeing it as a structural relationship, one built on a huge imbalance of power. And they use a very specific term for the structure: settler colonialism. Now, this isn't just your standard textbook colonialism. It's a distinct process where the goal isn't just to take resources, but to actually replace the original population with a whole new society. It's about creating new facts on the ground, permanently. This quote from Ilan Pappé really hits the nail on the head. From this perspective, the story isn't some uniquely complicated puzzle. No, it's a familiar pattern we've seen in history: colonialism and dispossession, just happening in the 21st century. So once you adopt this framework, it's like you get a new dictionary, as the authors call it. It gives you a new set of tools to analyze the past and the present with a whole lot more precision. And this new clarity isn't just about looking at big historical events. It gets down to the nitty-gritty, like the rules. So the big question becomes, how are those rules actually being applied on the ground? The book gives us this really powerful way to think about it. Imagine there's an official rule book. Let's call it international law. Now, what if that rulebook is enforced super strictly for one side, but for the other side, the rules are, well, let's just say they're treated more like suggestions. In that reality, universal rights stop being universal, don't they? They become special privileges, handed out or denied depending on who you are. Let's make this really concrete. Here's what that lopsided rulebook looks like. International law gives refugees a right of return. The authors point out this is treated as a universal principle, except in practice for Palestinians. The law also says an occupying power can't settle its own people on occupied land. It's a rule to be enforced unless, they argue, it's Israel. And the basic democratic ideal of equality for all citizens, it's fundamental, unless it might challenge the state's specific demographic majority. This is that asymmetrical rulebook in action. So why does all this reframing matter so much? Well, here's the crucial part. If you change the diagnosis of the problem, you totally change the possible solutions. When you move from a diagnosis of conflict to one of colonization, the whole horizon of what a just future could look like just opens right up. Think about it this way. The old conversation always focused on one goal: separation, partition, drawing a line on a map. But this new conversation, based on rights, it has a totally different goal: decolonization, which leads to equal rights for everybody. The focus shifts from dividing up the land to creating a single democratic reality with equal rights for every single person who lives there. And that's the final, really provocative question the book leaves us with. By stepping outside what the authors see as a failed, misleading way of talking, what new paths to a just future can we finally begin to see? It suggests that maybe the very first, most important step is simply to change the conversation itself. This analysis we've just walked through is based on the work of Noam Chomsky and Ilan Pappé in their book, On Palestine. We definitely encourage you to read the book or grab it from your local library. For the full long-form deep dive into this book and its ideas, follow the link in the description. If you enjoy systems-level analysis like this, please subscribe and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.